We're we're gonna keep it quiet until I go live.
Okay.
Let everybody come online. You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Bishop West Real Estate Mobile Tower right here in beautiful Northport, Florida. I am back from a week in Ohio. It was absolutely gorgeous on two different levels. Uh, Evie T and Ellie Rose, my granddaughters. Those are both the different levels that it was beautiful because they're two individuals who are beautiful in their each and every own way. We had a great time. We visited the Sky Zone. If you've never been to the Sky Zone, I highly, highly recommend it. We do have one up in Sarasota County. I would love to have one here in Northport in the near future. But I got to tell you, I have, it triggered me on many different levels while I was there because the fact that we have over 10,000 students here and we don't have a Sky Zone or we don't have a Buster, Dave and Buster's, or we don't have really anything kids related other than what our great city provides. All of our parks and recreation, our activity centers for the kids and seniors. The rest, I'm now in stockpiled in that same conversation. I hate to say, I've hit that. Don't know why my son's calling me when he knows I'm on the air, but we'll silence him real quick. And these things happen, but I've got a really, really good friend and a missed commissioner on many levels too. Miss Joe Luke, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. How old are those grandkids now?
Well, Ellie Rose is 5, getting ready to turn 70, and Ellie or Evie T is about 75 and turning 3. Um, I've got I've got one who at 3 years old will whip off uh, a, a a paragraph of complete paragraph at an entirely different speech level, and I've got Ellie Rose who is in first grade, May kindergarten maybe. Is it kindergarten? I think it's kindergarten, but she's reading uh, third grade level. We go down the street and she's reading street signs, and we're like, what? She has been doing that for quite some time, and what's amazing is no one knew it and the teacher found it out. She's like, "Did you know that she can read?" We're like, "Nope." And her mom was even taken back because she was not prepared for the fact that Ellie was reading not at just the level she should be, but beyond that. So we're taking her to the store, and she's picking grade 3 books now. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so it's interesting to watch her because she's quiet and she sits back and she relaxes, but at the same time the wheels are turning, and we don't know what she's reading, and we do, and that's the scary part, is that she's quiet about what she is reading. So she doesn't ask for a whole lot, she doesn't say a whole lot, but when she does, that the words that come out of her mouth, I think her and Evie T talk quietly amongst each other because Evie T is using some big words at the age of 3. So yeah, but I took them. I had them for the week because I don't know that you know this. My son John, and
Yep.
he went to Northport High School theater, and then went on to uh, UWF University of West Florida up in Pensacola, and came back and taught at Northport High School for a bit, and then went on to North Carolina Chapel Hill, and then went on to get his master's degree at Kent State University. So that's where they're at right now, is in Kent State, and he just had his first article published, and
Wow.
he did a presentation in Washington about backstage theater and organization, and they're actually talking to him about doing a publication. So it's going to be a really interesting time for all of us to kind of watch where he's going. We've got Michael building houses in the Zanesville, Newark area, and all over that area of the state. And then we've got Little John doing backstage theater and design, and it looks like he's taken the position at Ball State University in Indiana, and he is going to help organize the brand new uh, backstage area that they're building. And they've already been sending him plans and getting his ideas and concepts, and they basically haven't paid him one dime, but he's already working and trying to help. So it's interesting to watch all that develop, because I know you've got a lot of students out there that you have followed over the years and probably still do, but to watch them grow and go into their own fields, it's got to be kind of cool for you too as a city commissioner.
It is. It's wonderful. I can hear the pride in your statements too. That's great. Yeah, one of the girls that I mentored, I think she graduated 2014, is just now moving back to the area as a physician. She will be with Shore Point down in Port Charlotte real soon, if not already. So yeah, there's a lot of pride in watching the kids that graduate from Northport High.
And I found out something today, and I did some research, and it's puzzling at times, because I can't believe it's actually true, but we're just in the small calculation that I tried to figure out in a short period of time today. We're really over, and it's very conservative on my number, but we're over 10,000 students
I believe
in
it's
those.
closer to
Yeah,
16,000.
I heard that. I wanted to underestimate versus overestimate, because when you overestimate, people go, well, he didn't get the number right. Well, if I underestimate, they go, well, he was too low. I like that. But because 10 grand, 10,000, that's a lot of potential business that I see for the business community that has not recognized Northport as a fast growing community with a large youth base that would support some of these specialty businesses, the Sky Zones, the Dave and Buster's. They have Scene 75 up in Ohio that is really unique in its own way, and just different organizations that are out there that are really targeted towards, I want to say, youth/adult,
Yeah.
because there is that level of exchange there, in today's world. The Sky Zones. I was actually on a trampoline, and I know for a fact after the first day that day 3 and day 4 shouldn't have happened, but I did it anyway. What do you do? And then Little John showed up, and I bought them a quick membership add-on, and I do have the video, and I will tell you that he told me never to play it in on open dialogue, but I am so wanting to show that so I can go viral with my post, because he jumped off of the blow up stair step into the pit. And I'll tell you, it was great watching him jump. It was even more fun watching him try to get out. And I want to say that I was helping him, but I believe I was laughing and crying so hard that I wasn't much help.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pride in what I told you about him earlier, but there's also a lot of pride in the fact that I enjoyed every bit of that moment. Um,
That's great.
and but
Well,
my granddaughter, here's the funny thing. We could talk about all these things, but you've been a city commissioner, and you've had your time in, and I kind of wanted your insight on, what why is it that you as a city commissioner, and this is, I'm going to be joking when I say this to you, why did you bring so many mattress stores and, and gas stations and auto parts stores as a city commissioner? We should be blaming you for all this. Why did
uh,
you bring so many?
sorry, can't take the blame for that. But the zoning in the code is what determines what can be put on the various different pieces of land. And if it is zoned commercial with a certain type of overlay or that, anything that fits within that description gets built. Uh, you talked about, so many children. I've been advocating for Dave and Buster, Sky Zone, things like that my whole time through commission, even before I wanted to see a Dave and Buster. The traditional larger nationally known companies, commercial businesses, they look for that 100,000 population mark, and then they come flocking in. And usually, when one starts, it's a domino effect, and more start coming in. I do know some of the developers around the county, and one in particular has really tried to get a sky zone and different activities like that for kids on his property. But again, that ULDC, the Unified Land Development Code, is still being rewritten. And so a lot of that rezoning and the rewrite of the ULDC need to be put in place so that it makes it easier and more compatible for businesses in those types of industries to come in, where the gas stations, the automobile car washes and stuff, uh, they just look for amounts of cars. And we have a lot of cars because we have about 87,000 people, and most of them are probably driving a car, at least one. So those types of stores are necessary. Uh, but that is why there appears that, and I don't mean to say this in a negative way, but those lower type of uh, commercial businesses are more prevalent because though we're heading toward that 100,000 mark, we haven't reached it. But once we do, we'll see them coming. Out in Welland Park, uh, Mattamy Home and those developers own that land. And so they were able to, establish who comes in and what comes in according to their master plan. The city doesn't have that type of master plan, but they have the Unified Land Development Code, which dictates those types of things. So they're looking for, I mean, though Welland Park might have more flexibility of calling people in or enticing people in, the city will be able to be in that position the closer we get to that 100,000 mark.
Well, and I'm hoping, and I believe it won't happen, but I'm hoping that 100,000 mark doesn't get bumped. Every time somebody sets a goal and says, "Hey, we get to 50,000, things are going to change." They did. They actually did change at 50,000. They didn't. They didn't explode to the levels I thought everybody thought they were going to explode. Maybe they were over overconfident on where it would go and quickly. I like what you were saying though, because I know the ELDC is being rewritten. So we have specific navigational issues through the ELDC now for companies like that to come.
Yes, because I know some who have looked on my friend's developer's property and it didn't quite fit in. So there needs to be a reworking and a massaging to some of that stuff. I also know some folks that live within the city who wanted to start such as that sky zone type of thing too. They ran into obstacles also because of the way that ULDC is written. And so it needs to be a little more flexible for these businesses to come in. That's why it's so important for it to get done, John.
So, do you know when that's going to be completed?
I would have liked to seen it done a couple years ago. Uh, yeah, that's been a battle the whole time I was in. It was a battle. Uh, they are they still have somebody who's working on it um, as we go daily. They're working at it from an at-home site, I believe, instead of actually in um, the neighborhood development division. They're actually at home working on it, I'm told. Uh, if you're in that division, you're going to get disturbed a whole lot. They are so busy and so understaffed, but they do have somebody that's pinpointed toward finishing that. What I'm being told is that it's probably going to be late summer that it will be brought back to the commission.
So what are some of the things that you see that are going on in the city now that maybe you like, dislike, or would like to see adapt to a little bit? What are some of
Well,
your what are some
some
of
of
your
the
options?
yeah, some of the rezoning issues that are being talked about, you have to keep in mind that to keep our tax rate, our millage rate down, you need commercial business within the city. Instead of driving out and going to some other county or going to some other town, we need to keep the business here.
Right.
And that keeps the taxes down. Those commercial businesses don't use the city services the way that residential does. For every dollar that's paid in, the commercial uses about 35 cents versus, $1.50, $1.65 on the residential end. So you need to balance it through that commercial. But we only have 8% of our
Correct.
city that is designed for commercial. So that rezone does need to happen to hopefully entice other commercial businesses to come in so that the residents aren't being taxed through their millage rate.
And that's going to be really important for our future too, right?
Oh, heavens, yes. Yeah.
I
Who
mean,
wants to move to a city that's going to tax them to death?
right. And we've kept. I had city manager Jerome Fletcher on about 2 weeks ago, and he reiterated the fact that for 3 years we haven't really raised the millage rate, but it's coming, because you can't. It's not sustainable to not raise it, but it is going to happen. And
It probably will, and that's a polite warning coming from City Hall.
he did say
If
that
you go
too.
back yeah, if you go back, our city has been given a lot of money. After COVID, there was, those funds that came through, and we were able to put our infrastructure out to 75 to go under 75 with the ARPA, type funds. After Hurricane Ian, we expended expenditures, but we're able to recoup them back. So the governor gave us 1.7 million, in a grant while I was mayor that year. So we've been given that, but at the same time, we've been given these monies, basically coming down through the federal government. We've also had an explosion within growth and within the taxation because of this growth of the assessed values. And so when you're getting more money through the taxation, you don't have to mess with that millage rate. But at some point, if that growth slows and you don't have those added monies to keep up with the growth of your city hall work, your government, because we're adding to it all the time because the population continues to grow. So at some point, when one stops or slows down, you're going to have to meet it or match it with the millage. And that's why having that commercial base is so important. And I would like to see that start happening before we hit that 100,000 mark, so that we don't have that imbalance and we can keep the taxes at a better rate. One of the things that's going on right now, John, is the potential police department station. And the only type of bond that can be discussed at this point, because they're wanting to take 50 million out of surtax, 35 million out of the residents or the taxation through the millage rate, 35 million for that. What that does is puts the heavier burden of taxation on the people who have a second home, or the businesses, the commercial, the vacant land, and the lower, older homes aren't assessed as high, so their taxation would be lower. But the ones who pay the higher, or are assessed at that higher value, are going to be paying more. So the same way as a resident doesn't want to move into a city that's got high millage rate, what about a business? Do they want to come into a city that's taxing them for 40 years, thousands a year for 40 years, to pay for a police department? It worries me. It concerns me. To
So
me,
you
they've got to find another way, and I've given hints and suggestions of how to come up with the money other than taxing our people with a millage rate increase.
so what are some of your ideas?
P3 leasing is something that I saw being very effective when I went to the National League of City conferences. Ever actually traveled to these different projects that were built by a private company, and then over a period of time, the end user leases or pays them off. And at that set time, end time, it then becomes the government's property. And every one of those projects were awesome. They were probably had more benefits to them than what any government could come up with. They were done quicker. I mean, private builds far quicker than government too, and it's generally most always a cheaper price. So that leasing um, is definitely something that they need to look at seriously.
What was
Some,
your what was your feedback from who you talked to?
I'm sorry.
What was your feedback on who you talked to? Did they were they receptive to the thought process?
Some have been, definitely. Some others have thought of similar also. But I mean, our city has, I mean, I gave public comment this morning to the workshop special meeting that they had today on it. Uh, we have grown. I mean, that surtax vote was done in November of 22, but we have grown and exploded even since that point in time. So I think they need to recalculate how much, because they thought up to 2039 we would get 315 million. Well, maybe they need to recalculate it, because who knows, maybe they can calculate it at a higher amount. So we won't have to be taking away from any of the projects that our citizens voted on and said, yes, we agree, these projects are needed and necessary. And believe it or not, the police department station wasn't on that list.
It
how
was
that how that got overlooked, I don't know. Why it didn't come up, I do not know. But that's
well.
that's
It,
poor planning. I'm going to lay it right out there. That's
it,
poor planning.
well, and you know what? When you're, I think when you're building a city this large so fast, I mean, we're not talking about a missed opportunity of decades. We're really not. We're not 10 years behind the build. We might be four, maybe three. I don't think we're 10 years behind, are we?
Uh, no, it was built to withstand up, or they thought it was going to be up to a population of 78,000, the current building that we have. Of
Yep.
course, those numbers have flipped and we're 87 instead of 78.
Right.
They did not have enough land, so expanding that expanding that building is kind of out of the question. It's going to have to be a new one, and you can actually build a new one more effectively and efficiently than you can to retrofit what's there.
Sure.
So,
So, and the other side of that is, and I had this conversation with Chief and with Mr. Fletcher, is that when you look at the strategic placement of the new station, it kind of gives us this tiered attack. We've got uh, the South Northport will have kind of representation. The Sumter area will have representation, and then we have substation up in Welland Park area. So we've kind of got, and we've got some substations elsewhere, but we've kind of got strategic locations that and because there's been people that said, hey, why don't we take over the building behind Wendy's on 41? Okay, it, you can't just take any old building and flip it into a, a, a police station. Yeah, there's security factors, there's hardening of the building, there's all kinds of things that have to happen.
well, I'm
And
going to mention something else. That's 41. That should be commercial.
correct, correct,
You need as much commercial as possible, not a
yeah.
police station there.
Yeah, and I don't know where I do know where they want to put it, and I think strategically, I think it's a good representation to have there on Toledo Blade because you're going to have representation of the fire of the health side of things with Sarasota Memorial being on the other side of the freeway on southbound 75 up on Sumter. So we're going to have some really cool visibility with the fact that well, the police station visible and the um, also the hospital visible from the freeway.
Yeah, I was in Michigan at the time that they purchased that 19 acres, which I believe was designated commercial to start with.
Right.
But they bought it, I think, for close to $3 million, and it's going to cost almost $5 million to hook the utilities into it. So I wasn't around to hear everything. I know being out close to, uh, 75 is good, but we already own property on Price on the other side of the canal from our maintenance department, from our solid waste and that. So I don't know why that one was overlooked. That's the one that I had in mind when years back I brought up them having their own building instead of leasing from Bednerson out on Toledo Blade. So I can't fully speak to all the ins and outs of that. I mean, all I can say good about it is 19 acres is enough property for them to be able to expand through the life of the city, in my opinion.
Well, we've got a lot of projects. Just so you know, your friend and mine, uh, Robinson Vincent. I mess her last name up. Say her last name for me. Robin. I apologize. San Vincente, right? Did I say that correctly? I hope I did. She said hello to you, and she's wondering why you had a dark face. And I will just tell you, Jill came on last minute because I had a cancellation, and she was gracious enough to come on and join us. And so she's got a little lighting issue, but we definitely know who she is. But thanks, Robin, for joining in. Uh, Jill, as far as the need for the station, as an ex-city commissioner who didn't get to vote on it, who didn't push it out there, would you have pushed this agenda?
No, not what the commission pushed. I would not have. They definitely do need the building. They need a new station, but we need to be we need to slow it down and think clearly. I think they went too hastily into that 122 million, because all it did was added 30,000 more shell space to go out to 2065. I mean, we're not even at 25. I mean, that's more than 40 years out. Uh, and I come from a construction family background. Once you build or you construct a building, it starts depreciating. And who's going to go into a building that's 30 years, 35 years, 40 years old and finally finish the building when your exterior is 30, 40 years old? That it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I mean, our building that we have currently is 18 years old, and we're saying that it's out of date. Well, 20 years from now, we're going to have a new building, and we're probably going to be saying the same thing about that one, because there's new technology, there's new services that can go on. I mean, technology is advancing so rapidly that
You
we're going to
can't
be
build the
saying,
building fast enough.
exactly. I mean, once look at the phones. Once the phone comes out, it's outdated immediately. You know, you got to get another one every 2 years. Well, it's the same thing with anything that has technology. So to put the burden on the people in the city for 40 years to just build what they were going to have with the 78 million, except have expanded empty space. I can't agree with that. I think there should have been more time put to this instead of immediately jumping in. I mean, everybody loves the police department. I do too. Love the men in blue, but it's the men and the women in blue that provide the safety. It's the technology. When I was in, they got the body cameras, they got the license plate readers, they got that SWAT truck, they got anything that would advance their technology that would create safety in different situations for the men and the women in blue. Uh, we did what we could to retrofit the building, but it's those guys in that uniform that actually provide the safety. So all the bells and whistles go in, but in my opinion, all the bells and whistles go in,
Yep.
but you don't set yourself up for way years down the road. I mean, had we, you know, set ourselves up for a long time in this building that we have right now, it's still a small acreage. You can't add a fueling station to it later. You can't add more parking to it later. But with the 19 acres, they can phase in whatever they want to on that property as time goes by and as technology and materials advance.
You know, we've there's a lot there as far as like the discussion goes,
Yeah.
and is that the part that you wished would have kind of slowed down so that more discussion was had, so that maybe what was needed was discussed more, and possibly some of the funding issues that they have currently? Is that would you pool all that stuff together?
Yeah, I would have wanted to had the discussion. I didn't hear their meeting today. I gave public comment, but I did not hear the discussion. But they were bringing in today who they needed in that first meeting before making a decision. You don't just jump right off into a decision right away. Especially government needs to stop and think, because the only money they get is from the taxpayer. It's not their money, it's the taxpayers' money. So they need to slow these decisions down and make sure that they're doing the right thing and asking the right questions, or asking the residents to agree to the right questions.
Well, and I you know, there's something to be said that the fact that you're not fighting against it,
No.
you're just slowing the roll.
Yes. Uh, not, I mean, they need the building because they need the space. Definitely. But what do they need? How much do they need? can things be phased, come in at the lower level? And I said it in public comment, a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on everybody else's. So you need to plan that funding. You need to see where it can come from before making those decisions. And I know they felt rushed because they thought they had to have it on a ballot, this year, but you still have until August to discuss it for it to go into a November ballot. So you didn't need to make that decision right away. To me, there should have been more discussion, more thought to go into it. So to me, they can look at the surtax again, recalculate that to see if there's some extra cushion in that. But there's impact fees that go into the police department. And in a meeting that I was in, I was told, oh, impact fees go for their automobiles and stuff, and all of that is paid. So why not put off getting those automobiles for a year or two and using that impact fee of the police department for the police department, instead of taking projects and money away from other departments and other projects that the residents have wanted for decades. I mean, I saw surtax taken away and put somewhere else. And so projects were put on the back burner that still aren't done because it was, the surtax was stolen for a pet project, if I can call it that, at the time.
Right.
So it just, I'm not saying no. I'm saying you got to be smart. You cannot tax the people, cannot raise the millage, cannot steal and cause an imbalance in the growth of our city. You've got to think this through and come up with some logical solutions. A plan that should have already been put in place needs to be discussed.
And believe it or not, you already took a kind of a chunk of the hit, because you're one of five. And I say this a lot. There isn't one city commissioner who's fully to blame for anything. It takes three to
No.
get a vote
Yep.
through. So there's always three. There to get something done. There's always three. I don't know
But keep in mind, John, not everything goes to the commission. If their property is zoned what can pass through, it won't even go to commission. They're
correct.
automatically allowed to do it.
Right.
So we didn't see, unless they ask for,
A
a
rezone.
special
Yeah.
exception or something that's other than what's written, you don't really see it. And a lot of the things that you see happening, like out at Heron Creek and things like that, even some that's going to be going in off of 75, that was master plans that were approved long
Long time. Yeah.
long before I was ever in office.
Yeah, and we actually had that addressed by oh gosh, who was it on city staff? Um, and I've done so many city staff, and I'm so appreciative that they're part of the show and trying to get the information out. But they actually, gosh, I see her face right now and I can't think of her name, but um, the all that was zoned way back in the day, like oh seven oh
Yeah,
eight ish, and people are kind of throwing their hands in the air, but that was the code. That's what
yeah.
they did. All their plans, they did everything, they got everything authorized. So it's like they said at City Hall, we're making them abide by the guidances that are there. We just can't go current. We have to abide by the old working standards, but try to do it with a little bit of grace and ease.
Well,
And I
the
think you're seeing
breakdown came during the recession, basically.
right.
I mean, the approvals came before the recession. Recession hit. Nobody had money to do anything. So All of those master plans were put to the side. Now that the economy is going better and the city is growing and people are wanting to be here to cash in on the ground level of a growing city, now we're seeing it come to fruition, and the commission cannot say no to something that was already previously permitted.
Well, and quite frankly, and I there are some times that people kind of they have their wishes, they have their thoughts, they have every bit to want these things. Let's just take the Heron Creek property. That Heron Creek property was zoned for that. It was designed for that. It was accepted. Everything was done on that properly. And to ask the landowner to go back to the drawing board on an economic level, there's so much money has already been spent at that point, and it's been stamped approved, and now you're asking them to unstamp it and catch it up to the current, not build codes, because that's not fair at all, but because the build codes are the build codes on the buildings,
Correct.
but it's the other things that would have changed.
Well, John, I want to touch on that just a minute
Sure.
because we have a fantastic group in our neighborhood development. Elena Ray is brave enough to talk one on one with those developers and try to hint to them. Yeah, her name's Elena Ray.
Yeah.
um, to hint to them or to suggest to them or to tell them how it would aid the city or benefit the city more if they did blah blah blah. And a lot of them come around to that reasoning because it is logical. So my hat's off to that girl and her team. They do a jam up business, and they're constantly understaffed there.
But she explained it very, very well. And it was at a Northport Forward event, and I was the one that asked the question, and I remember how, believe it or not, she didn't just spew out an answer. It was well thought out, and she thought about the property, and she knew she knew the question, and she still didn't rush through the answer because she wanted to make sure she clarified it the right way. And that to me, it I I I I love the fact that they're being forthright. They're being very descriptive on how things are happening and why. Now, whether the citizens of the city or not are listening to factual information, that's a whole different line of conversation, because we always have the certain people out there that they want it they want it current, but they don't want to accept what's coming. And it's not one particular group. I think it's our whole city at times, because I don't think everybody's on the same page all the time. Um, we don't have really good media sources out there like the big TV channels spotlighting us like they do Tampa and Fort Myers and Sarasota. So we don't tend to get that spotlight news unless it's negative. Um, as far as some of these things that happen, man, we hit the map if it's negative. We're
Yeah,
just
I know.
we're
I
all
know.
over the world at that point. But some of these things are really cool to listen to when you go to these, like the Northport Forward meetings that they're holding, and they're really trying to get the factual information from the city. And a couple of the things I've talked to you about, and this is, I want to go back to like the economic development side, because
Yes.
I I would really, and you have the knowledge because you've been a commissioner, and I've been involved for a long time within the city and trying to help and spur on ideas and do things way back in the day. But um, I I had this conversation with Carmine today from Northport Forward, and just briefly with you, but I I, I want to understand the economic development side of Northport City. What's that team do? And I want that from not just the Jill Luke, the private citizen. Your insight as a commissioner is very valuable in this, and what your working relationship with them was.
Well, there are things that are called EDOs, economic development organizations. And the EDO is where the state funnels the projects. Let's say somebody in New York says, hey, I want to take my business down to Florida. So they reach out to Enterprise Florida, or somebody through the state government, and I want to come here to Florida, and they funnel it to that EDO. Now, the EDO for Sarasota County is Sarasota County Economic Development Corporation. So they are in North County. They do aid and help us down here, but they're not boots on the ground the way our department is. So we have a link within our city government, city hall, that corresponds and works every piece of economic development or a commercial business wanting to come here. They give that business the information that they need, the statistics that they need. They are the liaison with the EDO in Sarasota to those businesses within our city that are potentially coming. Uh, they're more than marketing, but they do market also. It's because they're concierge, basically, to businesses who want to come into our city.
So when all this kind of connects together, um, I'm still and I'm going to get these answers. I told you this is not a target at the city at all, not target at anybody in particular at the city. Um, because I think when we start talking about targets, then we get negative. And a lot of times you can not have enough information to go negative and be totally wrong. Um, because I don't think people in our city, a lot of people, I don't think they truly understand the economic development strategy behind the city. Would you agree with that?
Well, for a couple of reasons. One, I'll go back to what I stated in the beginning of the meeting. You have to have the commercial to balance out the tax rate. Uh, you want to be able to keep the monies at home, because we got 1 cent tax, we got gas tax, we got all these other things that can funnel back into our coffers without taxing the people in a millage rate. So the purchases end up coming to the city if you've got those businesses there that meet the need of your population. So they're needed, they're necessary on a couple of levels.
Yeah, to have a gas tax
Yeah.
with no gas stations would not be good.
No, in fact, when I first came into the city about the time of the recession, there was a study done, and we were so low on the potential of the amount of money we could get from gas tax, because we didn't have that many gas stations. People were driving, of course, 90% of the people leave the city to go to work. Well, they were filling up at other places, not within the city. We didn't have uh, gas stations at convenient locations, and not as many pumps as needed or necessary for them to fill up before leaving. So they would fill up somewhere else, and we missed it. And it was millions of dollars that we were missing in that gas tax. But all of that kind of revenue keeps the tax millage rate down.
So if a Northport citizen buys gas, buy it local.
Correct.
Because
Correct.
that actually, if you're buying your gasoline outside of your city, you're actually giving the money to the
Another,
other.
yes, you are.
So
Yes, you
that,
are.
I love my BJ's card. Dag on it. Um,
Well, uh, oh goodness, what's the one that's being built in Welland Park starts with a C?
Costco.
Yeah, Costco. You're gonna have to switch BJ out for Costco.
I know. It's coming. Um, Robin has a question. Does anybody know anything about electronic charging stations within our city?
I remember back when I was a commissioner, we were working with FPL to get charging stations put in. So it wasn't on the backs of the taxpayer. It was actually FPL that was putting it in. COVID came about, and I'm sorry, recessions and COVIDs and all that kind of stuff set you behind in your paces. So at this point, I don't know where any of that is. The time may have already lapsed on that, but there were discussions of it being put in, in around the governmental entities, libraries, city hall, things
I
like that.
I thought, and maybe I'm wrong. Did didn't I see some at the library?
I know, you know what? I think there might have been one put in at the Northport Library, the
Yeah,
one on
yeah,
41.
yeah.
I
I
do
thought.
know, I do know that they've got the repair station for bicycles. That I know is there. I think that's excellent.
Yes. So I think I remember because I went over there for the Northport Forward meeting, and I I I think I remember seeing that there, and I want to say that they have them at STC. But I don't
That'd
think
be,
I. My
it,
mind
it,
is not
it
agreeing
could have
with me.
been, it could have been fulfilled then.
Yeah, I'm not confirming the STC one though. I definitely remember seeing it over at the Northport Library, and I
Okay.
cannot believe this. Oh, I just looked at the clock. It is 3:56, Jill.
When am I to shut up?
4 o'clock. You've got like 3 minutes and 30 seconds to
3
talk.
minutes,
And
okay.
but
John, do
go
you
ahead.
have anything further in regards to our economic development, division at City Hall?
I don't not at this time, but I if there's anything you want to add in, please do.
Well, I gave you, the hierarchy of how things go and how our team is concierge, but they also do events sometimes and then invite in businesses who would potentially like to come to our city. They show them around the city, they introduce them to other business owners and give them a feel of what the city is. They are also limited to that ULDC, the codes, overlays, that kind of stuff too. So um, that getting that ULDC done is vitally important.
Well, what what is it that you think citizens should do? We talk about the importance of the city. We talk about the importance of city staff. We talk about the importance of the commissioners, and you guys, did a great job bringing all the gas stations and all the mattress stores and the auto parts stores here. Um, those were like I know those were first on your list of things to accomplish. All joking aside, but seeing as that you get the blame for all those things, what are some of the things that we as citizens should be doing if we want these companies to start paying attention to Northport and come here because we have a great potential for
Right,
any youth business
right.
to
The
come here.
company,
Yeah.
write the company yourself as a resident. Write them, uh, invite them. Tell them that you want them. I have driven into restaurants before up in Sarasota and said, "You guys need to come to Northport. You know, we need you here. This is a, number one exploding city. You need to come. So, and they're discussing it currently.
Yeah.
So the citizen has the right to invite them.
Give me 1 second. This is John Rawlings with WKDW Radio saying thanks for listening in, and I'll talk to you on Friday. Thanks. Have a good day. We're still live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I just got us off the air for the radio station, but I wanted you to go ahead and finish that because I think this is
If
this.
you'll give me just a minute, Mom has let the neighbor's cat in.
Yay! Hey, mom.
Mom, would you let the cat outside, please? I'm still talking on the meeting, please. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry, John.
How's mom doing?
There's many strokes happening.
Oh, that's you're doing the work you should be, and I think you know that. Um, are you doing all right?
I am. I am.
Good.
Thank
You,
you
you
for
look
asking.
you looked really good the other day when I saw you.
Good, because I was stressing where I was going to put her wheelchair in that crowd.
And it was a crowd. Holy cow! Um,
Actually, I probably have more stress doing this than I did being a commissioner.
no, I 100% agree with you. I haven't done the commissioner side of it, but I have 100% done what you are doing, and there is something to be said about the look you have, and Robin is 100% um, agreeing, and I kind of know her backstory there too. But anybody
Well,
who's go ahead, Joe.
I jokingly and affectionately have nicknamed her my toddler because with dementia, even getting older, they don't even have to have dementia. They sometimes revert back to that toddler type of mentality, thinking, and actions.
Yep.
So I call her the toddler occasionally, but so many people have said, yeah, they revert back or you switch roles. But this is going to choke me up. But at least when you're nursing that baby and you're teaching that baby skills, it's advancing, it's growing, it's accomplishing things. It is going to be independent and a growth. And though they may act like toddlers, it's the opposite of us caring for those parents. We're watching a decline. We're watching them not being able to understand, not being able to do their daily activities themselves. And so, no, you can't look forward to their independence. All you can do is pick up the voids for them and keep as much quality to them as possible.
And it it will pay you in the end. Um, the time you're doing now, uh, while the quality is not what you want, the quality is what you have, and the quality that you're spending, uh, there's something to be said for it,
Well,
and
I appreciate it, but I accept it as the blessing that it is. I am learning what I can through this part of my journey and trusting that I will learn and do and be what I should learn, do, and be for her, for others, and for myself before God.
well, and I commend that, and my thoughts and prayers are always with you anyway, even more so now, but you've always had them. We've had a friendship a long time,
Yes, we
way
have.
way back to your storage days,
Oh, it goes.
when you first showed up.
I want to brag about you and what you're doing for the boosters and for Northport High School anymore. That is really How I come about to know you was through that Boosters Club. I was part of that group. And to see what you're doing and bringing back and instilling out there at that high school, I am so proud of you, John. Thank you.
Well, Sean is Sean Kirkpatrick does
Yep.
a lot of the scene stuff, and we get things going, and you know that the pride, um, the pride that we're trying to instill. We've got some ex athletes that want to come on. We've got ex athletes that are business owners that are wanting to be part of it. We're trying to spotlight them, and we want to develop this into something bigger and branded special for Northport and the schools. We're actually getting some of the youth programs involved now, even though it's Bobcat Blitz. We've had the youth wrestling on. We've had youth football on. Interviewed them.
Yep.
We've had soccer on. Uh, so we're just not sticking to Northport High School and saying this is it, but we're saying you can be in Northport, grow through Northport, and grow into the high school and make it even bigger and stronger and better. And you know, we just hope we're making a difference out there. And you know, just as you are with your mom and Robin did with her mom, and I have with my dad and so many others that you know we all give back. We're all genuine people trying to do all the right things and make things better. May not always agree. That's the cool part. But our friendship has been solid for gosh, I think day one.
Yeah.
I don't know that we've ever spoke a bad word to each other, but we've certainly not always agreed specifics on topics. But in general, we're favorable of our city across the board, and I think people need to understand that too. You don't need to have the negativity towards people.
No. There are many
And
flowers. There are many flowers in the garden,
yeah,
and we need all of them to be beautiful.
yeah, and you know what? It takes all of us to make it a great city. It takes all of us to make the world go round.
Well, you're
So,
gonna think of something that I didn't think about,
yep.
and I'm gonna think of something you didn't think about, or our pasts are gonna give us, a way to view things, just so we stay open and receptive and understanding of the truth is what needs to happen to me.
Well, I'm going to say this to you, and I'm going to do it on the air. But you can you are welcome on the show anytime. And
Thank you.
if yeah, and I think this is more of a stress relief for you than it is a stressor. Um, because
Yeah, I only had one cat come in.
yeah, right. And you know what? Mom got creative for us and right at the end of the show too. So you got to love her
Yeah,
for that. And you know, it's good to have you on. It's good to have your insight. It's good to have your history as part of the insight, and it's really great to have you as a citizen who has served our community, still involved with our community. And anytime that one, I know anytime that I've ever called, you've always said yes, but
yeah,
I am deeply appreciative of that, because the
thank
information
you.
that you have is very valuable to get out.
Well, there's things in the history that we need to look at. I know, again, the city trying to come up with the monies for the police station, they were gonna be talking about selling some of our public property, what we already own, and we, for decades, have wanted a Morgan Center out on the other side, the east side of the city. And we need more sports fields for these kids. I mean, the soccer is just huge, and so we need more sport fields and accommodations for our youth. And so there's parkland that is out there that's designated for it, and that was one of the pieces of property that was on the list. I mean, so were some of our um, utilities property. And you can't destroy the imbalance of a city by selling the land that belongs to other departments that have projects placed on it to give the amenities that we all want and desire within our city. Can't.
Strategic planning.
Correct. Correct.
It's gonna be interesting to watch the navigation from this point forward,
Yeah.
um, because the need is there, but the need for thoughtfulness and strategic planning probably is at its highest level that it's ever been.
Yep. Yep.
And it's going to be interesting to watch it be navigated. Um, and I will say this: I haven't talked to Pete for a while, so if you're out there listening, Pete, uh, thoughts and prayers. I hope you're doing good, buddy. I need to call him because I just got back in Friday, and I have been under the weather with a little, I think, food poisoning slash stomach virus. Today is my first active day,
Oh
other
boy.
than a little bit on Saturday morning, but I had an appointment and I pushed through. But Pete Emmerich was on his motorcycle and had a little mishap, and he's doing well. And I did speak with him in person. I went over and visited with him before I went up and saw my granddaughter. So keep him in your thoughts and prayers. He's doing well, and we need all five city commissioners, whether you like them or not. We need them all. Um, and that feeling, don't you, Jill? Where
Yep.
you're not always liked by everyone, but
Yep.
we have to respect our city commissioners. They are truly doing the best of what they think is for our city, each and every one of them. And I just want to push this through. It's not one commissioner that
No.
can change what we're doing. It's three. So this picking a favorite, okay, pick them, but know that one commissioner doesn't have any
Can't
more
do it.
power than the other, and they've all got to work together. They've got to all got to come to a consensus, whether it's three, four, or the ultimate five consensus. Uh, those three numbers right there are the only ones that matter when it comes to a vote.
Yep.
Um, so keep that in mind. Jill, is there anything you want to add in before we leave?
No, sir. The time probably has come to the point where I
I know.
need to. It's about an hour is all I can do away from her. So
Well, go do your thing, and I'm so glad that I called you, and I so glad I got to spend time with you.
same here, sir. Thank you
All
for
right,
all that you do for our city. You're
not a
you're
problem.
good. You're a good mouthpiece.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and
All right.
and so are you, and I'll have you back on. I promise.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks. This is John Rawlings with WKDW Radio Real Talk with Commissioner Jill Luke saying thanks. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye now.